We all know that regardless of how you might feel about the issues, Joe Biden's debate performance was truly disastrous. He stumbled over his words, he appeared disoriented, he came off to viewers as a guy who was just too old for the job. It's long been public knowledge that Biden has suffered from a stutter his whole life. And for a while, Democrats have been playing off his gaffes, not as a result of cognitive decline, but rather this embarrassing condition. And you know what? That explanation probably made a lot of sense back during the Obama years or something. But most people who watched that debate do not see a stutter. They don't see a cold either. They see a decline into old age. Let's do a quick comparison. Here's Biden during the 2024 debate.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death.
And here's Biden back in 2007.
If tomorrow the order goes out from I'm President of the United States, I issue an order, end the war today, begin to withdraw all American troops. It will take a year to get the American troops out. Do you hear me now? That's the truth. It will take a year to get them physically out. Now, if you leave all the equipment behind, you might be able to do it in 7 months. And you leave those billions of dollars of weapons behind, I promise they're going to be used against your grandchild and mine someday.
Boy, he really called that one. But look at the difference in confidence, in his ability to get the point across. He was 64 years old in that second clip. He's 81 now. If he wins 2024 and makes it to the end of his term, he'll be 86. I know everyone was saying that Biden was too old back in 2020, but man, even in his 2020 debate performances, he was significantly more on the ball than he was last week.
He has no plan for health care.
Of course we do.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
Regardless of any legislative accomplishments, Biden's presidency has been a steady stream of optics L's. Gaffe after gaffe after gaffe have gone viral on social media. A steady stream of gaffes for the past 4 years that has kept the image of a feeble old man in everyone's mind. Now, if you want to be ultra charitable to Biden, you can explain some of these away. For example, when he was asked a question about legal fees at a town hall back in late 2020, he stumbled over his words a lot.
One of the things that I proposed is we make sure that prosecutors are able to have to list what the option charges were given to persons. For example, if you're a white guy who can afford a lawyer and you're charged with a crime, you're not charged with 9 crimes, and given 9 alternatives, and say, if you plead to the least one, we're going to put you on probation, and you have no lawyer, or you have a public defender who's getting paid half the federal prosecutor's getting paid.
And this could just be legitimate stuttering. It's pretty easy to take a clip of someone stuttering and being embarrassed about it and then spin it into something else.
The only way to spare more pain and more loss, the only way, these millstones no longer mark our national mourning. These milestones, I should say, no longer mark our national mourning.
Or when he was asked about Putin and Ukraine by a journalist, he spoke about the war in Iraq instead.
To what extent has Vladimir Putin been weakened by recent events?
It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home. And he has become a bit of a pariah around the world. And it's not just NATO, it's not just the European Union, it's Japan,
This could just be a brain fart. We've all had those before.
We've invested billions to enhance our power grid, expand energy shortages, so that lights, air conditioning, refrigeration, internet stay on during heat waves, storms, and other climate changes.
Same with temporarily mixing up Trump for George Bush.
This is the most consequential, not because I'm running, but because who I'm running against. This is the most consequential election in a long time. And the character of the country, in my view, is literally on the ballot. What kind of country we're going to be. 4 more years of Georgia, going to find ourselves in a position where if Trump gets elected, we're going to be in a different world. And so
Sometimes old ideas just pop into your head on the fly. It's pretty normal. Or when he blamed Trump for not mentioning coronavirus in his State of the Union when Trump explicitly did.
imagine if he had just, Amy, on the State of the Union that year, spoke up and said, we got a problem, we can handle it.
Protecting Americans' health also means fighting infectious diseases. We are coordinating with the Chinese government and working closely together on the coronavirus outbreak in China. My administration will take all necessary steps to safeguard our citizens from this threat.
This could be him not knowing, not remembering, or lying. That would be bad. But it doesn't necessarily mean that he's got dementia or something. I've been saving up a lot of these clips across Biden's 4 years in office because it's pretty clear that rightoids online want this to be their narrative. Like, for example, this clip was posted on Twitter with remarks by right-wing accounts that feed into the whole Biden's got dementia story. But when you actually listen to the clip, it just sounds like a stutter.
I think he was getting on a plane. He told me he came in to see me last event. And Representatives Shirley Jackson Lee, Al Green, Sylvia Garcia, Lizzie Pinelli, Pinell, and what am I doing here? I'm going to lose track here. And Mayor Turner, Judge Hidalgo, thank you all for welcoming us.
And sometimes these clips are actually dishonestly created by those very same rightoids in order to perpetuate that narrative. For example, this clip was passed around by the Daily Wire, and it sounded like he was reading the instructions on the teleprompter, telling him to walk out of the room at the end of his comments.
So folks, you do it all. I'm sorry to go on so long, but I can't thank you enough for all you've done for the country and what you've done for me over my career. You've educated me, you brought me along, and you've always been there. Now, I'm supposed to stop and walk out of the room here.
As this clip spread around the internet, people began to exclaim that Biden isn't all there. He's just being led around by his handlers or something. But in actuality, at least in this case, Biden was purposefully saying that although he was supposed to leave the room after the speech, he didn't want to. Instead, he wanted to mingle with these guys and chat them up for a while.
Now, I'm supposed to stop and walk out of the room here. I'm going to stop. But with your permission, I'm going to walk into the room because I want to say hello to them. Thank you.
Here's another example of dishonest clip chimping. This one went viral with the caption, "Biden suffers a severe brain freeze on live TV."
Do whatever the hell they want. I guess I should clear my mind here a little bit and not say what I'm really thinking.
But this time, I got to be the fact checker. I dug up the speech myself and found the part where the clip took place. And Biden clearly wasn't having a severe brain freeze. He was pausing out of disgust for Trump's position.
The failure to support Ukraine at this critical moment will never be forgotten. It's going to go down in the pages of history. It really is. It's consequential. And the clock is ticking. And this has to happen. We have to help now. You know, we have to realize what we're dealing with Putin. All of us should reject the dangerous statements made by the previous president that invited Russia to invade our NATO allies if they weren't paying up. He said if an ally did not pay their dues, he'd encourage Russia to, quote, do whatever the hell they want. I guess I should clear my mind here a little bit and not say what I'm really thinking, but let me be clear. This is an outrageous thing for a president to say. I can't fathom from Truman on, they're rolling over in their graves hearing this. As long as I'm president, America stands by our sacred commitment to our NATO allies, as they have stood by their commitments to us repeatedly. Putin and the whole world should know, if any adversary were to attack us, our NATO allies would back us. And if Putin were to attack a NATO ally, the United States will defend every inch of NATO territory.
Regardless of what you think about Biden's politics here, this clip does not depict him losing his mind. However, all that being said, this doesn't mean that it's all sunshine and rainbows for Biden, and that all of these claims regarding his age and cognitive decline are made up. Far from it. Enough of these clips have gone viral that public opinion has begun to seriously sway. It's happened so many times that people are wondering, is there actually a legitimate medical problem here? It's not unreasonable to ask, for example, why Biden appears to be reading off a teleprompter during an interview, not giving a speech, but supposedly answering questions on the fly from an interviewer.
There are going to be no deportations in the first 100 days of my campaign.
Let me get that right. You are going to freeze deportations?
Freeze deportations for the first 100 days. And only people will be deported are people who committed a felony while here. That's number one. Okay, I lost that.
Yeah, well, but that's good because we could talk, you and I, on that.
That's not the only time he's had a teleprompter fuck up. Sometimes he actually does read off the directions accidentally.
Imagine what we can do next. 4 more years. Pause. 4 more years. 4 more years. Majority writes, and I quote, "Women," it's a quote now from the majority, "Women are not without electoral or political power. It is noteworthy that the percentage of women who register to vote and cast a ballot is consistently higher than the percentage of the men who do so." End of quote. Repeat the line. Women are not without electoral and or political, or maybe precise, not and or.
You're supposed to repeat what you said, dude, not say repeat the line. Look at this guy in the background. He's trying desperately not to laugh. It's also reasonable to ask why Biden regularly, consistently forgets the name of his own staff.
So I want to thank you both, and I want to thank the former general. I keep calling him general, but the guy who runs that outfit over there. I want to make sure we thank the secretary for all he's done to try to implement what we've just talked about, and for recommending these 2 women for promotion. The Secretary of State, the Secretary of the military behind me. They've been deeply involved in this whole effort. Javier, Mr. Secretary, you can come up too. I've been watching on television. You've been really good. For example, back when they were holding up before Trump got elected, they were holding up the nomination of the president put forward for the Supreme Court. A really fine man.
Or why the people around him constantly prevent him from taking questions directly from journalists.
So thank you, Mr. President, for your confidence.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you for willing to do it. Now we're going to get down to business here, and Ron, who am I turning this over to?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. I think it's time for the press, our friends in the press to leave now. Thank you.
Mr. President, the children in the border facilities.
Biden has consistently held the fewest press conferences for a sitting president since the Reagan years. Or why Biden seems to just forget what he's doing in a place sometimes. Like, for example, this is Kamala reminding him that he forgot to give his prepared statement about the Miami apartment building collapse back in June of 2021.
Will you travel to Florida, sir? Can we ask you about Florida, what you've learned? And what
yes, I apologize. Yes, thank you, my president.
You know, back in the 2000s, we had the Bushisms, where George Bush occasionally mumbled and stumbled and said some funny stuff.
There's an old saying in Tennessee, I know it's in Texas, probably in Tennessee, that says, "Fool me once, shame on you." If fool me, we can't get fooled again.
Like, if Bush said that 200 million people died of coronavirus, we would have been laughing our asses off. And yeah, all this stuff has led to some jokes at Biden's expense. As it should, that's free speech.
Joining us live this morning from New York. Hey, good morning. Wake up.
Yes,
wake up, wake
I
up.
can't hear anything.
Okay. This is your wake up call, Harry.
Nothing.
Okay, I'll tell you what. We are going, he's meditating, he's taking a little nap. Taking a little nap.
But Bush, despite his own speech impediment, was younger and generally more energetic than Biden is now. People called Bush stupid constantly, but I don't think anyone used that as more than an insult. I don't think people genuinely believed that Bush was unfit to hold office, but they do for Biden. Now, if this were all just viral clips and nothing else, it would actually be pretty easy to hand-wave it away. Clips are taken out of context all the time. They're constantly cut to make someone look bad. We all know it. I've even showed examples of that in this video. But it's not just viral clips. Biden refused a cognitive test on his latest physical.
Does the White House think that the idea of the president taking a cognition test, a cognitive test, as a part of this physical is a legitimate idea, particularly just on the heels of the special counsel report, more polling as my colleague Selena just mentioned, showing that many American people have concerns about that?
Look, I got this question last week as well, and I'm just going to say what Dr. O'Connor, it's kind of what he said to me about a year ago when the report came out last year, obviously on his physical, which is the president proves every day how he operates, how he thinks, right? But by dealing with world leaders, by making really difficult decisions on behalf of the American people, whether it's domestic, whether it's national security. And so he shows it every day on how he thinks, how he operates, and so that is how Dr. O'Connor sees it, and that's how I'm going to leave it. He is sharp. He is on top of things. When we have meetings with him, with his staff, he's constantly pushing us, trying to get more information. And so that has been my experience with this president. Anything else outside of that, I just shared with you what Dr. O'Connor said to me, and so I'll just leave it there.
And while it's not required by the rules, Trump faced the same criticisms during his presidency, that he was older and in decline, and he voluntarily took a cognitive test to dispel all such doubt. So far, Biden hasn't, and in fact, he reacted with hostility at the idea. And then the New York Times said that you can't judge Biden as mentally unfit for not taking the test, since you still have no proof, while also saying that even though Trump aced the test, he's still mentally unfit. You can't make this shit up. Probably the most damning piece of evidence is the report from Robert Hur, a Department of Justice special counsel, investigating the claim that Biden had illegally kept classified documents after his tenure as vice president was over. The report stated that Biden's memory was significantly limited, both during his recorded interviews with the ghostwriter in 2017 and in his interview with our office in 2023, and that if he was brought to trial, Biden would present himself to a jury as he did during our interview of him, as a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory, who was not capable of committing a serious felony that requires a mental state of willfulness. More specifically, the report outlines that Biden's conversations with his ghostwriter in 2017 were often painfully slow, with Biden struggling to remember events and straining at times to read and relay his own notebook entries. His memory while he was interviewed by the special counsel was worse. He did not remember when he was vice president, forgetting on the first day of the interview when his term ended, and forgetting on the second day of the interview when his term began. He did not remember even within several years when his son died, and his memory appeared hazy when describing the Afghanistan debate that was once so important to him. They conclude that Biden appears to have diminished faculties and faulty memory. The White House responded to the special counsel in a written letter, stating that the report's treatment of Biden's mental faculties is inappropriate, and uses highly prejudicial language to describe a commonplace occurrence among witnesses, a lack of recall of years-old events. The letter also makes it clear that Biden's interview with the special counsel happened one day after the October 7th Hamas terrorist attacks against Israel, and that Biden was extremely busy and very preoccupied with current events, not history. Outside of the letter, Biden and his staff were quite pissed in private, with Biden apparently enraged at the suggestion that he would ever forget his son's death. VP Kamala in particular fired back quite strongly.
What I saw of that report last night, I believe is, as a former prosecutor, the comments that were made by that prosecutor, gratuitous, inaccurate, and inappropriate. October 7th, Israel experienced a horrific attack, and I will tell you, we got the calls, the president and myself, in the hours after that occurred. It was an intense moment for the Commander-in-Chief of the United States of America, and I was in almost every meeting with the president in the hours and days that followed. Countless hours with the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State, the heads of our intelligence community, and the president was in front of and on top of it all. So the way that the president's demeanor in that report was characterized could not be more wrong on the facts, and clearly politically motivated, gratuitous. And so I will say that when it comes to the role and responsibility of a prosecutor in a situation like that, we should expect that there would be a higher level of integrity, than what we saw.
Now we can expect the president's staff to spin these things as best they can. That's their job. But I think it's safe to say that there has been a consistent pattern of public events that ultimately culminated with that disastrous debate performance, where Biden's mental state could just no longer be hidden or explained away convincingly. Though Kamala would, once again, try to do just that.
You debated against then Vice President Vice President Biden 4 years ago, and he was a very different person on the stage 4 years ago when you debated him. You must, I mean, that's certainly true, is it not?
Anderson, the point has to be performance in terms of what a president does. A president who incites an insurrection against the Capitol. No, but I got the point that you're making about a 1.5 hour debate tonight. I'm talking about 3.5 years of performance in work that has been historic.
But
whether
is that
it be
the man who we
the
saw
former
on the
guy,
stage
the other
tonight,
guy,
is that the
the other
person
guy
you
on
see
the
in
debate
meetings every day?
stage, the person that you saw on the debate stage that has, for the last 3.5 years, up until today, performed in a way that has been about, whether it be in the Oval Office, negotiating bipartisan deals, so that we have an infrastructure, a real infrastructure plan where we're putting trillions of dollars on the streets of America to upgrade our infrastructure. Whether it be the person I see in the Oval Office who is meeting with heads of the military and the intelligence community and in the Situation Room, ensuring the safety of America. The person I see in Joe Biden on the world stage, convening world leaders who often ask for his advice. Most recently, just during the G7 conference. So I'm not going to spend all night with you talking about the last 90 minutes when I've been watching the last 3.5 years of performance.
You know, it's less convincing every time she does it, and I think that anger shows that she knows it too. When it came to the substance of that debate, Trump lied, exaggerated, and misattributed more than Biden did, which we went over in a previous video. But Biden's performance had a unique flaw that Trump's did not. It's very possible that Biden said things not because he was lying or exaggerating or misrepresenting, but because he didn't know what the hell he was saying. For example, Biden said under his watch no troops died.
The idea that he did something that was significant in the military, you know, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still found ourselves in a position where you had a notion that we were this safe country. The truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have any, this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world like he did.
This isn't true. 13 soldiers died in Kabul during the Afghanistan pullout, 3 died in Jordan to a terrorist attack, and 2 died off the coast of Somalia, intercepting terrorist supplies going to Yemen. Is Biden knowingly lying here? Is he exaggerating? Or does he genuinely believe this and he's lost his mind? I don't know. It doesn't make the falsehood any better though. What about when Biden said that border crossings were lower during his administration than Trump's?
What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. It's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more border patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either.
Well, that's true if you only look at the data from the past month, where Biden's executive action restricting asylum access took effect. But as a total average across both presidencies, this is false. Is Biden lying, misremembering, bad data, just making shit up? What about when Biden said the Border Patrol Union supported him?
We worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, it made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position.
Well, the union did support the bipartisan border bill that Biden was pushing before it died in the Senate, but they did not support him as candidate. And they made that very clear by posting on Twitter in the middle of the debate. What about when Biden said that black unemployment was the lowest under him?
The fact of the matter is there's more small black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we're providing housing for black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporate these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses.
While it did hit a record low under Biden in April of 2023, 4.8, by May of 2024 it was up to 6.1, which is a higher number than most of 2019 under Trump. Biden's black unemployment average is higher than Trump's, but if you take the COVID years out, it's lower, but not by much. When Trump was wrong during the debate, he was lying, exaggerating, or misattributing. But I don't think he was ever mentally impaired, even if he spoke a little bit slower from his bombastic 2016 debate performances. With Biden, though, it's entirely possible that the lights are on but no one's home, that his mouth is just babbling out bullshit with very little control over the spigot. Immediately after the debate was over, Democrat voters online began to call for Biden to step down. The media began to cast doubt on Biden's chances of winning, which I also went over in the last video. Things have only gotten worse for him since then. Biden's debate prep schedule was leaked, and it was revealed that he never started before 11 a.m. and he always needed an afternoon nap. Hey, me too, buddy. People closer to Biden have been privately reporting more and more mental lapses.
Well, these are people, several of them, who are very close to President Biden, who love him, have supported him, and been among them are some people who have raised a lot of money for him. And they are adamant that what we saw the other night, the Joe Biden we saw, is not a one-off, that there have been 15, 20 occasions in the last year and a half when the president has appeared somewhat as he did in that horror show that we witnessed. And what's so significant is the people that this is coming from, and also how many people around the president are aware of such incidents, including some reporters, incidentally, who have witnessed some of them. But here we see tonight, as these people say, President Biden at his absolute best, and yet these people who have supported him, loved him, campaigned for him, see him often, say that in the last 6 months particularly, there has been a marked incidence of cognitive decline and physical infirmity.
What I wonder about...
There have been numerous instances where the president has lost his train of thought, can't pick it up again. There was a fundraiser at which he started at the podium, and then he became very stiff, according to the people there, as if it were almost a kind of rigor mortis.
This was reported allegedly in June of 2020.
This was this was a year ago almost exactly at the old Four Seasons restaurant on Park Avenue. And he became very stiff, and a chair had to be brought for him to do the latter part of the event. I think that what these folks are saying and have been saying for a while is, yes, he's great when we see him, as we have tonight, but he also has these inexplicable moments that we're very concerned about, and you, Ron Klain, and the First Family, we need to talk about this, and they've been pushed back repeatedly whenever it's been brought up.
His family is sticking by him, as you would expect them to do. That's what a good family does. But goodwill just isn't enough here. Of course, there are also tabloid-level alleged schemes of how other Democrat bigwigs are planning to secretly topple the president. And while that's all in good fun, none of that's confirmed yet. In fact, despite the initial claims that Biden was considering dropping out, every other possible contender seems to have abandoned the idea and coalesced around him. Even though the latest polling shows Biden and Trump tied, every other possible contender losing to Trump, and only Michelle Obama, amazingly, beating him by 11 points. In case it's not clear, this is a disaster for the Democrats. They seem to be desperately shielding Biden from the spotlight as much as they can, which only makes things worse. Biden's next media appearance after the debate was a pre-recorded interview on a radio show that aired at 6 a.m. on July 4th. Like, either they're deliberately hiding the guy or everything is just coming together in the worst possible way. But the host, to her credit, didn't pull any punches. She went right for it, right out the gate.
Is there any reason for the American people to be concerned?
No, I had a bad debate.
Yeah.
I had a bad debate. But 90 minutes on stage does not erase what I've done for 3.5 years. Proud of the record, and we just got to keep moving.
There is so much talk about whether the president not only can win this election, but whether he can serve, whether he is fit to serve another 4 years. Those questions are out there. Based on your conversation with him, do you believe he is?
Mm-hmm. I believe he is fit, but I also want to remind people that he's the face, the figurehead as president of the United States. He has a whole staff around him that has created so many changes over the last 3 years.
So, Biden is staying in. Well, I guess the Democrats could always do what that one idiot from the Huffington Post recommended: use AI to make a fake Biden for public appearance purposes. You could make the claim, like back in 2021, that the rightoids were purposely cutting together clips to make Biden appear worse than he actually was, at least at that time. You cannot make that claim anymore regarding how Biden comes off now in 2024. The proper course of action for the Democrats was to stop being delusional, recognize what was going on, and replace Biden earlier. Accept that you're not going to get that incumbent advantage, just write it off. Hold a series of real primaries back at the start of the year in order to find Biden's replacement that was at least voted on by people, and then have Biden aggressively support him for the 2024 election. But that didn't happen. Now the Democrats have to either ride with Biden, ride or die with Biden, or appoint a new candidate rather than elect one. And in democracies, the idea of an appointed leader always leaves people with a bad taste in their mouths, which is why they tend to lose re-election. In terms of the man himself, Joe Biden, if it sounds like I'm denigrating him, I'm not. He has a long, distinguished career in public service. He has good, solid legislative accomplishments under his belt. And frankly, Biden back in his prime was excellent. Look, listen to this.
I remember when we watched on television, the senator from Arizona and I spoke to it on the floor that night when they overran Srebrenica. And you could actually see UN soldiers sitting there with their blue helmets and hats on top of tanks, watching the Serb conquerors take the women in Cholab and send them in one direction, and take the able-bodied men and send them in the other direction for extermination. This wasn't because they wanted segregated prison cells. They took them to the woods, they dug holes, they shot them, they dropped them in the holes, they poured lye on their body and bulldozers the dirt over them. And we were told, no, that's not happening. Now we have satellite imaging that uncovers this. Surprise! Surprise! Oh, my Lord, this is happening. And the reason I bother to say this, because I know you all are tired of hearing me saying it for the last 3 years, is to make one very important point. And one, with all due respect, I don't think the president has accurately made. And that is, what is our interest in Bosnia? Is there a vital interest? Is there an interest? Or as my friend from Missouri said, does this action represent our interest and our values? Well, if this does not represent our interest and our values, then nothing that has happened since the end of World War II represents our values. Our interest is that history repeated itself. And let me be presumptuous enough to go on a little more what I think the next history lesson will be. The Soviet Empire has collapsed. The good news. The bad news is all the ethnic hatreds, all the ethnic fighting, all the atrocities that occurred 100 years ago and 40 years ago are now uncovered again. There are 25 million Russians living outside the border of Russia, in Ukraine, in the Balkans, in Kazakhstan. There is war in Armenia, Georgia, and almost all of it is based on ethnicity. And what is the message we send to the world if we stand by and we say, we'll let it continue to happen here in this place, but it is not in our interest. We don't fear that it will spread. I'm not here to tell you if we don't act, it will spread tomorrow and cause a war in Europe or next year, but I'm here to tell you within the decade it will cause a spread of war and a cancer and the collapse of the Western Alliance. And what's so important about the Western Alliance? NATO for NATO's sake, so we can beat our breast? What I'm about to say is going to cause me great difficulty if I'm reelected and come back here as the ranking member or chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. But Europe cannot stay united without the United States. There is no moral center in Europe. When in the last 2 centuries have the French or the British or the Germans or the Belgians or the Italians moved in a way to unify that continent, to stand up to this kind of genocide? When have they done it? The only reason anything is happening now is because the United States of America finally is understanding her role. So we do have a national interest. Our national interest goes well beyond the genocide that will spread like a cancer.
This was Senator Biden arguing against the policy of President Clinton, his party's president, of maintaining the Bosnian arms embargo even as they were being genocided by the Serbians. I think he's completely on the money here. But even if, for some reason, you disagree with him politically, there's no doubt that Biden is no longer this man. Getting old happens to all of us, you know? You can't be young forever. It is reasonable to say that Biden shouldn't be president based on his current faculties. But that doesn't wipe away who he was, or what he's done over the course of his career. The sum of a person's life isn't who they are in their final years, or months, or days. If Biden said, I think I'm done, I'm going to step down and enjoy retirement, some Republicans might laugh at him for giving up or admitting defeat, but those guys would just be assholes. There's no shame in throwing in the towel, not after this many wins. Personally, I don't think Biden should be running. I don't think he'll be a good candidate against Donald Trump in 2024. That's not a slight against him, it's just the practical reality of getting old, which is something that we'll all have to face down at one point. This is why I don't mock him or denigrate him or look down on him at all, even if I think he should give up. Sooner or later, each of us will have to take a good, long look in the mirror and ask, can I keep doing whatever it is I'm doing? And eventually, the answer will be no. And when it is, it's a test of character to see how you deal with it. And now, it's Biden's turn. And if you need any more convincing of that, let's end off by listening to Biden from 2018, from before he began his 2020 presidential campaign, addressing the types of things that he thought back then might disqualify him from the presidency.
Is age a legitimate issue?
It is a legitimate issue, sure it is. And I think people are going to judge it. If I were to run, I think they're going to judge me on my vitality. Can I still run up the steps of Air Force Two? Am I still in good shape? Do I have all my faculties? Am I energetic? I think it's totally legitimate for people to ask those questions. 2018 Biden sounds like he's describing all of the problems that 2024 Biden seems to have now. It's over, Biden bros. This is the end. You have ridden with Biden to the end of the line. If the Democrats want to win, they have to replace him. It's as simple as that. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. I've got a request if you don't mind. My friend Kraut, another YouTuber, he recently made a video about the digital state. I think it's a really good video. You guys should definitely check it out. And there's a link on screen for you to click if you want to go watch it, because he's a pal of mine and he does pretty good work. All right, guys, I'm getting out of here. Have a good one. I love you.